No one came to my daughter's surgery. 3 days later. My mom asked for $6,200 for my sister's wedding flowers. No one from my family came when my daughter was rolled into surgery. Not my mother, who had promised to bring coffee and sit beside me. Not my father, who said, "We'll be there before they take her back." Not my sister, who posted a photo of champagne flutes that same morning with the caption, "Wedding week finally begins." I sat alone in the pediatric waiting room at Mercy Children's Hospital, holding a paper cup of coffee that had gone cold before the sun even came up. My daughter Ellie was 9 years old. Right before the nurses wheeled her away, she looked past me toward the elevators and whispered, "Did Grandma change her mind?" I kissed her forehead and lied. "No, baby. Maybe she's just late." 3 days later, Ellie was home in a back brace sleeping through pain medicine when my phone finally lit up with a message from my mother. Not "How is Ellie?" Not "I'm sorry we didn't come." Not even "Is she awake?" Just this: "Need $6,200 by noon tomorrow for Kendra's wedding flowers and church hall balance. Everyone is doing their part. Don't make this difficult." I stared at that message while my daughter slept 10 feet away with a scar down her back and a stuffed fox under her arm. Then I sent my mother 62 cents. In the memo box I wrote, "Buy a ribbon." The next morning, the credit union called because my mother was standing at the counter crying that I had stolen from the family. And that was the morning I stopped being the daughter they could use and became the mother my daughter deserved to see. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me where you're watching from. Because if you've ever been the dependable one, the quiet one, the one everyone calls only when they need something, then you already know this kind of pain does not arrive all at once. It is taught slowly. My name is Natalie Parker, and for most of my life, I thought love was something I had to earn by being useful. I grew up in a small town outside Dayton, Ohio, in a blue ranch house with a cracked driveway, a leaning mailbox, and a maple tree that dropped leaves faster than my father could rake them. We were not rich. We were not poor. We were the kind of family that fixed broken things with duct tape, bought birthday cakes from the grocery store, and still acted like what people thought of us mattered more than what was actually happening inside our house. My younger sister Kendra was the sun in our family. At least that was how my mother treated her. When Kendra cried, everyone moved. When I cried, everyone waited for me to stop. If Kendra lost a bracelet, Mom would turn the couch cushions upside down, check under beds and say, "Poor baby, she gets so attached to things." When I came home from school with my science fair ribbon bent in my backpack because someone had stepped on it, Mom said, "Natalie, it's just paper. Don't be dramatic." When Kendra failed her driver's test, Dad took her out for milkshakes because she needed cheering up. When I passed mine the first time, he tossed me the keys and said, "Good. Now you can help with errands." That was how it worked. Kendra was protected. I was prepared. Kendra was allowed to be fragile. I was expected to be functional. By 13, I knew which bills were due, because Mom left them unopened on the microwave. By 15, I knew how to make 1 pound of ground beef feed 4 people. By 17, I worked after school at a grocery store and used my paychecks for shampoo notebooks and sometimes gas for Mom's car when she said she forgot her wallet. Nobody called that unfair. They called it maturity. And because I wanted to be loved, I believed them. After high school, Kendra tried community college for 1 semester, then quit because she said the professors didn't understand creative people. Mom told everyone Kendra was finding herself. I started working full-time in an elementary school cafeteria. At first, I was embarrassed by the hairnet, the plastic gloves, the smell of chicken nuggets stuck to my shirt. But after a while, I loved it. I loved knowing the kids' names. I loved remembering who needed lactose-free milk and who always asked for extra applesauce. I loved that for some children, the tray I handed them was the most reliable part of their day. Years later, I became cafeteria manager at Maple Grove Elementary. It was not fancy work, but it was honest work. I handled food orders, lunch accounts, staff schedules, allergy charts, and the tiny emergencies that happen when 400 children need to eat before recess. On weekends, I baked pies for a farmer's market booth, peach cobbler in summer, apple butter hand pies in fall, chocolate chess pie when people looked like they needed comfort. That booth paid for my daughter's shoes, school supplies, doctor visits, and the emergency savings account I built 1 tired deposit at a time. My daughter Ellie was 7 when doctors told us her spine was curving faster than they wanted. At first, it was just appointments, then x-rays, Then a brace she hated so much she cried the first night and said, "Mommy, I feel trapped inside myself." By the time she was 9, the specialist said surgery was the best chance to stop the curve from getting worse. I remember driving home from that appointment with Ellie asleep in the back seat, clutching her stuffed fox, Mr. Button. I pulled into our driveway and sat there with both hands on the steering wheel, long after the engine stopped. For once, I wanted my mother. That embarrassed me, but it was true. I wanted to be someone's daughter for 5 minutes. I wanted someone to say, "You should not have to carry this alone." Instead, when I called Mom and told her the surgery date, she went quiet for a moment and said, "Oh, honey, that's the same week as Kendra's final venue meeting." I waited. She added, "Are you sure the hospital can't move it? Move my child's spine surgery. For flowers and tablecloths." That sentence should have woken me up. But when you are trained to accept crumbs, sometimes you still call them dinner. 2 years before Ellie's surgery, my parents asked for access to my emergency savings. It happened at my kitchen table on a rainy Tuesday night. Mom came over with a casserole she had clearly bought from Kroger and transferred into her own glass dish. Dad stood behind her cap in his hands, looking at the floor like he was already sorry for something. "Natalie," Mom said, "you've always been the organized one." That was never a compliment in my family. It was a warning. Dad cleared his throat. "My hours got cut at the hardware store. Your mom's prescriptions are getting expensive. We just thought." Mom reached across the table and touched my hand. "It would help if we had backup. Just access to your emergency account. Not to use unless something serious happened." I should have said no, but Dad looked tired. Mom looked scared, and some small foolish part of me thought maybe this was trust. Maybe finally they saw me as important, so I added them as authorized users at my credit union. Mom hugged me hard before she left. "My good girl," she whispered. "You always come through." At first, nothing changed. Then small withdrawals began appearing. $180 for a car battery, even though Dad's truck started fine the next morning. $420 for Kendra's branding photos when she decided she wanted to become a wedding planner without ever planning a wedding. $75 here, $300 there. A temporary payment for Mom's hair appointment before Kendra's engagement party. A family emergency that turned into a weekend trip to Nashville, judging by Mom's Facebook photos. Every time I asked about it, Mom acted wounded. "Natalie, do you really want me to feel ashamed for needing help?" So I stopped asking. That is how some families train you. Not always with yelling, sometimes with sighs, sometimes with silence, sometimes with one sentence that makes you feel cruel for having a boundary. By the time Kendra got engaged to Tyler, my emergency account had become the family wishing well. Tyler was a high school baseball coach, sweet, polite, and weak around Kendra. He looked at her like she was fireworks, and maybe she was. Beautiful, loud, expensive, and dangerous if you stood too close. Kendra decided she wanted a rustic chapel wedding with elevated garden energy. In normal language, that meant a church ceremony, a rented fellowship hall, mason jars, eucalyptus everywhere, a cake too tall for a room with folding chairs and flowers that cost more than my first car. Mom treated the wedding like a national holiday. She had a binder with color swatches. She used words like "our vision." She talked about Kendra's bridal shower more than she had ever talked about Ellie's surgery. At Sunday dinners, the wedding swallowed every conversation. Kendra's dress, Kendra's hair trial, Kendra's signature cocktail, Kendra's photo wall, Kendra's dream exit with sparklers. Ellie would sit beside me in her brace, pushing peas around her plate, waiting for someone to ask about her doctor. No one did. One Sunday, Ellie brought a drawing she had made. It showed her in a hospital bed with Grandma, Grandpa, Aunt Kendra, Uncle Marcus, and me standing around her. Everyone had big round smiles. Above the picture, she had written in purple marker, "My brave day." She handed it to my mother after dinner. Mom glanced at it and said, "That's sweet, baby," then slid it under a stack of bridal magazines so she could show Kendra a photo of centerpiece lanterns. Ellie watched her drawing disappear. I saw her face change. That was the first real crack in me. Not because my family had disappointed me. They had done that for years. But because my daughter had started noticing. The night before surgery, I sent one message to the family group chat. "Ellie's check-in is at 5:30 tomorrow morning. Surgery starts around 7. She's nervous and would love to see you before they take her back." Mom replied with a heart emoji. Dad wrote, "We'll be there." My brother Marcus wrote, "Thinking of her." Kendra wrote, "Praying big day tomorrow for us too." Final floral mock-up. I stared at for us for a long time. Then I packed Ellie's hospital bag, fuzzy socks, insurance card, phone charger, coloring book, Mr. Button. The next morning was cold and dark, the kind of early morning that makes the whole world feel unfinished. Ellie was quiet in the car. She wore her yellow hoodie, the one with the tiny embroidered bee on the sleeve. Her hair was in 2 uneven braids because my hands shook while I did them. At the hospital, the nurses were gentle. They checked her bracelet, asked her favorite color, and brought her warm blankets. Every few minutes, I looked toward the elevators. 5:45, 6:10, 6:35. No one. Ellie noticed. Maybe Grandma went to the wrong floor, she said. Maybe, I answered. At 6:50, they let me walk with her toward the surgical doors. She hugged Mr. Button to her chest and looked over my shoulder one last time. Grandma's not coming. I kissed her forehead. I'm here, baby. Her eyes filled with tears, but she nodded like she was trying to be brave for me. That almost destroyed me. The doors closed behind her, and suddenly I was standing in a hallway too bright for grief. I went back to the waiting room and sat in a blue vinyl chair between a grandfather reading a Bible and a woman knitting a baby blanket. People came and went. Families whispered updates. Someone's aunt brought donuts. Someone's husband rubbed her shoulders. My phone stayed quiet. At 9:21, notification popped up. Kendra had posted an Instagram story. She was holding a bouquet sample in front of a mirror, smiling like the world had arranged itself around her. Caption: Wedding week magic starts now. My daughter was on an operating table, while my sister smiled into a camera with roses in her hands. I turned my phone face down. The surgery lasted hours. When the doctor finally came out and told me Ellie had done well, my knees nearly gave out. I cried so hard the doctor put one hand on my shoulder and waited until I could breathe again. No family arrived. Not in recovery. Not that evening. Not the next morning. Mom texted once at 10:11 p.m. How'd it go? I wrote, she made it through. She's in pain. Mom replied, good. Long day here too. Exhausted. That was all. 3 days later, Ellie was home. Our living room looked like a small hospital had moved in. Pill bottles lined the side table. A walker leaned against the couch. A pain medication schedule was taped to the fridge. Ellie slept propped up with pillows pale and sweating, Mr. Button tucked under her arm. I was making grilled cheese because it was the only thing she said sounded good. The pan hissed softly. Rain tapped the kitchen window. For the first time in days, the house almost felt calm. Then my phone buzzed. Mom. I wiped my hand on a dish towel and opened the message. Need $6,200 by noon tomorrow for Kendra's wedding flowers and church hall balance. Everyone is doing their part. Don't make this difficult. I read it once, then again. There was no question mark. No please. No. How is Ellie feeling? No, I'm sorry we didn't make it. Just a number. A deadline. And the expectation that I would obey. Something inside me went still. Not angry. Not loud. Still. Like a door closing softly but completely. I looked into the living room. Ellie was asleep, her face turned toward the window, her little body held together by stitches, medicine and courage no child should have to prove. Then I looked back at the message. For years I had mistaken being useful for being loved. That day I understood the difference. I opened my banking app. My hands were steady. Transfer amount $0.62. Memo by a ribbon. Send. The tiny confirmation sound came through the speaker. It was almost ridiculous how small it sounded considering how much it ended. Then I turned off the stove, slid the sandwich onto a plate, and sat beside my daughter until she woke up. The next morning, while Ellie watched cartoons with the volume low, I made coffee and opened my laptop. My emergency account stared back at me from the screen. I scrolled through the activity. $180, $420, $75, $1,200. Little pieces of my life withdrawn with soft excuses attached. Gas, groceries, Kendra deposit, mom reimbursement, hall payment, dress alteration. Years of my labor chopped into pieces and served to people who never asked if I had eaten. I clicked through the settings. Remove debit card access. Confirm. Remove secondary login. Confirm. Change password. Confirm. Turn on text approval for withdrawals. Confirm. It was not dramatic. There was no thunder. No courtroom, no screaming, just a woman in an old cardigan drinking cold coffee, taking her own life back one click at a time. At 10:38 a.m., the phone rang. Unknown number. I answered because Ellie's doctor sometimes called from different lines. Is this Natalie Parker, a man asked. Yes. This is Brian from Buckeye Community Credit Union. I'm calling because Sharon Parker is here at the branch, and she says she's unable to access funds connected to your account. I closed my eyes. In the background, I heard my mother's voice, sharp and trembling. Tell her this is family money. Tell her she can't just lock us out. Brian cleared his throat. Ma'am, I just need to verify whether you intended to remove her access. Yes, I said. I did. Another muffled burst from my mother. She's punishing us because she's jealous of her sister. My throat tightened, but my voice stayed calm. That account is mine. Every dollar in it came from my paychecks and weekend baking income. My daughter had surgery this week. My family did not come. Then my mother asked me for wedding money. So yes, I removed access. There was a silence. Not long, but long enough. Brian's voice softened. Understood. I'll make a note that the changes were authorized by you. Thank you. Before he hung up, I heard my mother again. Natalie, don't you dare embarrass me like this. I looked at Ellie sleeping on the couch. Then I whispered, you did that yourself. By lunchtime, the family group chat caught fire. Kendra, are you seriously trying to ruin my wedding? Mom, call me right now. Dad, this has gone too far. Kendra, you've always hated when I'm happy. Then Kendra sent one more message. Your kid having surgery does not mean the whole family has to stop living. I stared at that sentence. That was the moment I stopped feeling guilty. Because guilt needs love to survive. And there was no love in that message. Only exposure. I did not answer. For once, I let them sit inside the room they had built. An hour later, my older brother Marcus knocked on my door. Marcus had always been the family weather vane. He turned whichever way Mom's emotions blew. He was not cruel exactly, just comfortable with my discomfort. When I opened the door, he stood on the porch in his work boots, holding his cap in both hands. Mom's a wreck, he said. I leaned against the doorframe. Ellie is asleep. Keep your voice down. He glanced past me and shame crossed his face for half a second. How is she? I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was 4 days late. She hurts, I said. She's scared to move. She asked why nobody came. Marcus looked down at the porch boards. Natalie, we didn't realize it was that serious. I sent the surgery date, hospital name, check-in time, and doctor's instructions in the group chat. Yeah, but Mom said kids bounce back fast. I stared at him. My child had screws put into her spine. He swallowed. I let the silence sit between us, heavy and useful. Finally, he said, the wedding payment is due. Kendra's losing her mind. Then Kendra can lose her mind on her own budget. His eyes flicked up. You know how she gets. Yes, I said. And all of you know how I get. Quiet, helpful, easy to guilt. That's why you came. Natalie, no. You came because Mom thought you could make me feel bad enough to reopen the account. He had no answer. I stepped back and started to close the door. He put one hand out. She said you sent 62 cents. I did. Why 62? I looked him straight in the face. Because they asked for $6,200 and 62 cents matched the amount of concern they showed my daughter. Marcus flinched. Good. Some truths should sting. He left a minute later, quieter than he arrived. That evening, Kendra posted on Facebook. Funny how the people who claim to love family are the first to punish a bride during the most important week of her life. By morning, 3 aunts had commented with angry emojis. One cousin wrote, some people are just bitter. Another wrote, a wedding only happens once. I almost typed something. Then Ellie called from the living room. Mom, can you sit with me? I put the phone down and went to my daughter. That was the choice I had failed to make too many times before. A week passed. Ellie started walking slowly from the couch to the kitchen, counting each step like she was climbing a mountain. I cheered for every one. Our neighbor Mrs. Alvarez brought soup. The school secretary dropped off a stack of handmade cards from Ellie's classmates. One little boy wrote, come back soon. Lunch is weird without you. People who owed us nothing showed up with more tenderness than my own family. Then Mom texted me on Friday afternoon. Kendra's bridal shower is Sunday after church. Bring 2 peach cobbler trays. People are expecting them. Also bring the check so we can settle this privately. I stared at the word privately. That was always the family rule. They could use me publicly. Praise Kendra publicly. Ignore Ellie publicly. But I was expected to bleed quietly. I did not answer. On Sunday, I left Ellie with Mrs. Alvarez for 2 hours. Ellie was well enough to sit up and color, and Mrs. Alvarez promised to call if she needed anything. I baked 2 peach cobblers, not because Mom ordered me to, because I had promised the church kitchen months ago before everything happened, and I keep promises that belong to me. Then I drove to the church fellowship hall. The parking lot was full. Minivans, pickup trucks, a few sedans with white ribbon tied to the handles. Inside the hall smelled like coffee sugar and lilies. Pink tablecloths covered the folding tables. A banner on the wall read, "Celebrating Kendra and Tyler, a family love story." Near the dessert table, I stopped cold. There was a chalkboard sign decorated with fake flowers. Dessert table, sponsored by Natalie Parker. Sponsored. Not made by. Not thank you. Sponsored. They had put my name on the table like I was a wallet with a pulse. Kendra saw me from across the room and smiled too brightly. There she is. She sang loud enough for people to turn. My sister finally decided to be part of the family. A few women laughed softly. Mom hurried over and gripped my arm. Her nails pressed into my skin. "Do not start anything," she whispered. I looked down at her hand until she removed it. "I brought the cobblers," I said. "And the check?" she asked through her teeth. I did not answer. I walked to the dessert table, set the trays down, picked up the chalkboard sign, and wiped my name off with a napkin. The room quieted in waves. Kendra's smile dropped. "What are you doing?" "Correcting the sign," I said. Mom's face went red. "Natalie." For the first time in my life, I did not lower my voice to protect their image. "My daughter had spine surgery last week," I said. The room went still. Not silent. Still. "There is a difference." I looked at Kendra. "You knew the date." Her mouth tightened. "This is not the time." "No," I said. It wasn't the time when Ellie asked if Grandma changed her mind. It wasn't the time when I sat in the waiting room alone. It wasn't the time when Mom texted me for flower money before asking if my child could stand. Aunt Diane's hand flew to her mouth. Tyler stepped away from the punch bowl, confused. "Kendra," he said slowly, "you told me Ellie's surgery got postponed." Kendra whipped around. "Not now." His face changed. "You said Natalie was being dramatic because the surgery wasn't even happening yet." A murmur moved through the room. Kendra's cheeks flushed. Mom pointed a shaking finger at me. "You are humiliating your sister." I looked at the banner behind her. "A family love story." "No," I said. "I am telling the part of the story you left out." Dad stood near the wall, one hand in his pocket, staring at the floor. That hurt more than Mom's anger, because Dad had always hidden inside silence and called it peace. I looked at him. "You promised Ellie you would be there." He did not look up. My voice almost cracked then, but I held it together. "She drew you in the hospital room, Dad. She drew all of you there. She thought being loved meant people came when it hurt." Nobody moved. Kendra folded her arms. "So what, Natalie? You want everyone to clap because you're a martyr. You always do this. You act like you're better than us because you work hard and never ask for anything." That was Kendra, sharp when cornered, cruel when exposed. "I'm not better than you," I said. "I'm just done paying to be beneath you." Her face changed. The words landed exactly where they needed to. Mom stepped forward. "Everything we did for family." "No," I said. "You used the word family every time you wanted access to something that belonged to me. My time, my money, my food, my forgiveness. But when my daughter needed family, all she got was empty chairs." Mrs. Bell from church slowly lowered her paper plate. Tyler looked at Kendra. "Why didn't we go to the hospital?" Kendra snapped. "Because we had a floral appointment, Tyler. It was already paid for." The room went so quiet, I could hear the ice shift in the punch bowl. Tyler blinked. "You skipped a child's surgery for flowers." Kendra's lips parted, but no good answer came out. For the first time, she looked small. Not sorry. Small. There is a difference. I reached into my purse and pulled out a small envelope. Mom's eyes flashed with relief. She thought it was a check. I handed it to her. She opened it fast. Inside were the 2 debit cards from my emergency account cut cleanly in half. One had her name. One had Dad's. Her face went pale. "This is cruel," she whispered. "No," I said. "Cruel was making a 9-year-old wonder what she did wrong while you picked roses." Tyler stepped back from Kendra. Kendra saw it. That scared her more than anything I had said. I turned to leave, but Dad's voice stopped me. "Natty." He had not called me that since I was little. I looked back. His eyes were wet. I didn't know she asked for me. I wanted to forgive him right there. That was the old reflex. Patch the wound before anyone had to look at it. Instead, I said, "You would have known if you came." Then I walked out. Outside, the air felt cold and bright. My hands did not shake until I reached the car. Then I sat behind the wheel and cried so hard I could barely breathe. Not because I regretted it, Because telling the truth does not always feel powerful at first. Sometimes it feels like tearing your own stitches. When I got home, Ellie was coloring at the kitchen table with Mrs. Alvarez beside her. Mom Ellie said I walked to the bathroom with only one break. I wiped my face and smiled. That's my brave girl. She narrowed her eyes. Were you crying? A little. Because of Grandma. I sat beside her carefully. Because I finally said something I should have said a long time ago. She thought about that. Did they get mad? Yes. Are we in trouble? That question broke my heart in a new place. I pulled her gently against me, mindful of her back. No, baby, I said. We are not in trouble for telling the truth. For the next 2 weeks, my family went quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Punishment quiet. Mom stopped texting. Dad did not call. Kendra deleted her Facebook post, but not before half the town had seen enough to start whispering. The wedding changed. The flowers were scaled down. The fancy hall decorations disappeared. The 7-tier cake became 2 sheet cakes from Costco. Tyler did not call off the wedding, but Mrs. Alvarez told me through the town grapevine that he and Kendra had a serious talk in Pastor Jim's office. I did not ask for details. For the first time, their chaos did not feel like my assignment. Ellie kept healing. 1 step to the kitchen became 3. 3 became the mailbox. The first time she made it to the end of our driveway, she lifted both arms carefully and whispered, "I'm taller than pain." I laughed and cried at the same time. At school, the staff organized meal deliveries for us. The custodian fixed our loose porch rail without asking for a dime. One of the kindergarten teachers left a bag of groceries on our steps with a note that said, "For the woman who feeds everybody else's babies." I taped that note inside my pantry. Not every family is born around your table. Some are built by the people who show up without needing a performance. A month after the bridal shower, Dad came by. I saw his truck pull up through the curtain. For a second, I considered pretending we were not home. Then I opened the door. He looked older than I remembered. Not because he had aged in a month, because I had stopped shrinking him into someone stronger. He held a brown paper grocery bag in both hands. "I brought soup," he said. I looked at the bag. "Did Mom send you?" He shook his head. "Number." We stood there awkwardly. Behind me, Ellie was watching a movie on the couch. Dad looked past my shoulder and saw her brace the pillows the slow way she shifted when she breathed. His face collapsed. Not dramatically, quietly, like a man finally understanding the room he had refused to enter. "Can I say hi?" he asked. I turned to Ellie. "It's up to you." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, "You can wave from there." Dad's eyes filled, but he nodded. He lifted one hand. "Hi, Ellie." "Hi." No hug. No running into Grandpa's arms. No magical forgiveness scene. Real hurt does not heal because someone feels sorry once. Dad set the soup on the entry table. "There's something else," he said. He pulled an envelope from his coat pocket. I did not take it right away. "What is it?" $6,200. My stomach tightened. "I don't want wedding money." "It's not wedding money," he said. "It's an apology I can count, because I don't know how to say the rest right." His voice shook. "I should have been there. I should have asked about her. I should have stopped letting your mother treat you like the family spare tire." The phrase was ugly and accurate. He continued, "You don't have to forgive me. Ellie doesn't either. But I wanted to give back what we tried to take." I took the envelope but did not open it. Giving money back doesn't fix it. "I know. Does Mom know you're here?" "Number." That told me more than the apology did. For once he had come without permission. I looked toward Ellie. She had turned back to her movie, but I knew she was listening. "I'll use it for Ellie's physical therapy bills," I said. Dad nodded. That's what it should have been for in the first place. He left after that. No big speech. No family hug. No clean ending tied with a ribbon. Just soup on the table, an envelope in my hand, and my daughter breathing safely in the next room. Kendra got married in June. We did not attend. Mom sent one message the morning of the wedding. "You're really going to miss your only sister's big day." I wrote back, "You missed Ellie's brave day." Then I blocked her for the weekend. Not forever. Just long enough to teach my nervous system that I was allowed to rest. That Saturday, Ellie and I made pancakes for dinner. She wore pajamas with stars on them. I let her put too many chocolate chips in the batter. We ate on the couch and watched a movie about a lost dog finding its way home. Halfway through, Ellie leaned against my arm. "Mom." "Yeah." "Are we still a family if it's just us?" I looked at her small hand resting on mine. The answer came easier than I expected. "Yes," I said. "A real one." Months passed. Ellie returned to school part-time. She moved slowly but proudly. Her classmates made a welcome back banner covered in crooked hearts and glitter. I stood in the hallway watching her walk toward them, And I thought about all the years I had walked toward people who never came toward me. I do not do that anymore. My mother has tried to reach me through relatives. Sometimes her messages are angry. Sometimes they are sweet in that dangerous way that means a favor is coming. She says I changed. She is right. I changed from available to awake. I changed from useful to whole. I changed from the daughter waiting to be valued into the mother showing her child what self-respect looks like. Dad visits sometimes now, only when Ellie says yes. He sits on the porch, brings soup, fixes small things, and never asks for money. He is learning that showing up late does not erase absence, but it can be the beginning of something honest. Kendra and I have not spoken. I heard her wedding photos were beautiful. I also heard Tyler refuse to let Mom put my name on anything again. That made me laugh for the first time in weeks. As for the emergency account, it is still there. But now it belongs to the emergencies that matter. Medicine, rent, car repairs, a child's recovery, a mother's peace, not flowers, not image, not grown people who confuse access with love. Sometimes I still think about that hospital waiting room, the blue chairs, the vending machine humming, the way Ellie looked toward the doors expecting people who never appeared. I used to think the saddest thing was being alone. Now I know there is something worse, being surrounded by people who only see you when they need something. And there is something better too, choosing the quiet after the wrong people leave. Because that quiet is not empty. It is room to breathe, room to heal, room to stop performing loyalty for people who confuse sacrifice with obedience. My daughter's scar is fading now. Mine are not visible, but they are healing too. And when Ellie asks why we do not see Grandma much anymore, I tell her the truth in a way a child can hold. Because love should make you feel safe, not small. That is the lesson I wish someone had taught me earlier. Family is not proven by matching last names' wedding photos or who gets a seat at Sunday dinner. Family is proven in waiting rooms, in hard weeks, in the messages people send when they have nothing to gain, in who remembers your child is hurting before they ask what you can give. I spent years believing dignity was something I had to earn by being helpful, quiet, and easy to keep. I was wrong. Dignity was mine the whole time. I just had to stop handing it to people who kept spending it. So tell me, what would you have done if your family skipped your child's surgery but still asked you to pay for a wedding? Would you have sent the money? Would you have answered the phone? Or would you have finally wiped your name off the table and walked out with your peace? Tell me where you're watching from and tell me this. When did you finally realize that being the dependable one should never mean being the disposable one?